ghost hunting. We all grew up in the same small town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and for us, Halloween always felt bigger than Christmas. The three of us, me, Steve, and Jay, were cousins, born just a few years apart. We'd spent every summer together since we were kids, climbing trees, fishing, and getting into trouble. Kelly was the only one who wasn't family, but she'd been part of the group for as long as I could remember. She lived just a street away, and somewhere along she just became one of us. Although people did not see us hang out much at school, it was after classes when the group really came alive. Every afternoon, we'd end up at Steve's place. He lived just a few blocks from all of us, and his house was where everything happened. If anyone from school ever saw us together, they'd probably be surprised we were even close. Steve was the type everyone noticed. Tall, athletic, always with that confident grin. He played varsity and had his own car, and somehow still made time for us. He wasn't just our driver. He was the leader without ever trying to be. Jay, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He took a different turn, more of the tough kid, the kind teachers gave up on, but everyone respected. He had a short temper, got into fights now and then, and didn't care much about what people thought. But under that rough side, he was the most dependable one among us, the kind who'd step in first when things got serious. Kelly was the quiet type, the one who'd laugh at our arguments and keep us from going too far. She got scared easily but still showed up every time, even when she said she wouldn't. Everyone knew she had a soft spot for Steve, though none of us ever teased her for it. And then there was me, the cautious one, the so-called smart one, who usually thought twice about everything, but still ended up going along with their plans. Steve was the only one with a car, so wherever we went, he was always behind the wheel. It started a few days before Halloween. We were at Steve's garage, just hanging out like usual, tossing a ball around and eating chips. Kelly had her small transistor radio playing in the background, the kind that also worked as a flashlight. It was mostly static, switching between songs and bits of local news. Then, out of nowhere, a man's voice came through, clear for a second, before breaking again. It was from the town's local station. Something about the old Mill Roadhouse. They said a few kids had claimed to see lights moving inside late at night, even though no one had lived there for decades. The announcer laughed, saying maybe the ghosts were getting ready early for Halloween. Jay smirked, old man Harrison's house. He said, that dump's still standing. Steve laughed, shaking his head. It's probably just squatters. My dad said that place got boarded up after some fire in the 70s. Kelly turned the volume down, her face a little pale. My grandma used to talk about that house, she said softly. She said people heard knocking or voices inside, even when it was empty. The radio went back to static, and no one spoke for a while. We all just sat there, listening to the hum of the light and the sound of the night outside. That silence, that weird chill, kind of started it all. Jay was the first to break the silence. He leaned back on the chair, tossing a bottle cap in the air. know what we should do, he said. We should go there this Halloween night, just to see if those stories are true. Kelly almost dropped her radio. No way, she said quickly. You're not dragging me to that place. Steve grinned, like he had been waiting for someone to say it. Come on, it's perfect. I'll just drive up, take a look, maybe walk around the porch. That's it. No one's saying we have to go inside. Yeah, right, Kelly muttered. That's what people say before disappearing. Jay laughed, the sound echoing in the garage. You're scared already, and we're not even there yet. I didn't see anything. Part of me wanted to go, not because I believed in ghosts, but because it felt like one of those nights we'd remember forever. Steve saw that look on my face and smirked. See, even he's in. Kelly rolled her eyes but didn't argue anymore. She just said, if something happens, I'm blaming all of you. That's how it started. A dumb idea on a quiet night that somehow turned into a plan. Halloween night came fast. By 7, we were all at Steve's driveway. The air was cold, the kind that bites your fingers even through your jacket. Steve grabbed his hockey stick and 2 flashlights from the shelf. I carried the spare batteries, and Kelly showed up with her transistor radio, with a flashlight built into it and some snacks. Jay was loading the trunk. A baseball bat, a small toolbox, and an old blanket just in case the car broke down. When she saw what we were bringing, her eyes went wide. What's with all of that? Are we going to war? She said, half laughing and half nervous. I thought we were just going for a drive, she added. Steve smiled, tossing the hockey stick into the back seat. It's just being prepared. Never know when we'll need to scare off some raccoon or protect you. Kelly rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. Yeah, right, you're just like playing hero. Jay slammed the trunk shut. Better have these than walk in there like we own the place, and have nothing when everything goes bad. We all laughed, but deep down, we knew Jay wasn't really joking. The night felt too still. The streets too quiet. Steve jingled his car keys and said, All right, everyone in. We'll be back before midnight. We all climbed into the car. Steve driving, Kelly beside him, Jay and I in the back. As the headlights cut through the dark road, the transistor crackled softly from Kelly's lap. The drive-through town didn't feel like any other Halloween. The streets were glowing orange and gold, every porch lit up with carved pumpkins, with paper ghosts swaying in the wind. Even the lampposts had fake cobwebs hanging off them. Kids were out hunting between houses, with bags half full of candy, their laughter echoing through the cold night air. We passed 3 kids in matching costumes, long white sheets with crooked eye holes. They walk across the street in front of the car, waving their candy bags. For a second, all of us just watched them. They looked like triplets, almost moving in sync, their shapes vanishing into the orange fog ahead. The weather was strange, cold enough to make your breath fog, but not yet winter. The air had that smell of burnt leaves and wood smoke, the kind that always made Halloween feel bigger, older, like the town itself was holding its breath. Jay leaned back, looking out the window. Place looks alive tonight, he said. Yeah, I said quietly. watching the decorations blur by, like something's waiting to happen. Steve laughed. That's the point, isn't it? Halloween's supposed to feel like that. None of us knew then how right he was. After a few more turns, the town started to fade behind us. The bright porches and paper ghosts gave way to darker streets, then open fields where the only light came from the car's headlights, cutting through the fog. The laughter of kids grew faint, replaced by the low hum of the engine and the occasional creak of old branches in the wind. Steve turned the radio down. We're almost there, he said, eyes fixed on the narrow road ahead. Kelly looked out her window, hugging her coat tighter. You sure this is the right way? Jay grinned, resting the bat across his knees. What? Getting scared already? She shot him a glare. No, just making sure you idiots don't get us lost in the middle of nowhere. I chuckled, but the truth was she had a point. The road looked older the farther we went. Cracked pavement, tall grass creeping from both sides. The sign that used to mark the old neighborhood was barely standing, half covered in vines. There, Steve said, pointing ahead. That's the turn. We all leaned forward to look. The old gravel path led uphill, swallowed by trees. Somewhere past that was the abandoned house. The one people said no one lived in. The lights still came on some nights. Jay whistled low. Well, he said, licking his lighter, welcome to Halloween. The gravel crunched under the tires as we pulled up the hill. Branches brushed against the windows, the sound sharp and dry. When we reached the top, Steve slowed the car to a stop. The headlights fell on an old iron gate, rusted, bent to one side, with leaves twisting through the bars. Behind it, the house stood half hidden in fog. 2 stories, windows dark, roof sagging in the middle. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Home sweet home, Jay muttered, gripping his bat. Steve killed the engine. The silence that followed felt heavy. Even the radio static faded out like it didn't want to make a sound here. Kelly leaned forward between the seats. You're kidding, she said softly. We're actually going in there. Steve smirked, though his eyes didn't leave the house. What? You want to just drive up here for nothing? I opened the door first, and the cold hit like a wall. My breath came out white, disappearing fast in the air. The others followed, flashlights clicking on one by one, 3 narrow beams cutting through the fog. Jay flicked his lighter and held it up, the flame trembling in the wind. Great, he said. Place looks like it's gonna fall on us. Kelly's transistor crackled softly as she adjusted the dial, a faint voice cutting through static for half a second before disappearing. Steve stepped closer to the gate, pushing it open with a long screech that echoed across the trees. Let's make it quick, Steve said, in and out. The gate creaked back into place behind us, the sound fading into the fog. We walked slowly up the dirt path, our flashlights shaking slightly with every step. The house loomed larger the closer we got. Its paint had peeled away to gray wood, and the porch sagged in the middle, like something heavy had once stood there for years. The front door was cracked open just enough for the wind to whistle through. The place smells like wet wood and dust. Kelly close to Steve, the radio still hissing in her hand. Once in a while, it caught something faint, like a voice whispering through a broken channel. Then it would go silent again. "You hear that?" she asked. "It's just interference," I said, though I didn't sound convinced. Steve stepped up first, testing the porch with his boot. It groaned but held. "Place is solid enough," he said, and motioned for us to follow. Jay went next, tapping the wooden railing with his bat. "Still think this is a dumb idea," he muttered, but he didn't turn back. I was right behind him when I noticed something near the door, a rusted lantern hanging from a nail. The glass cracked, but seems clean inside, like someone had recently touched it. "Guys," I whispered, "look at this." Steve turned his light toward it. Probably just kids messing around. But there weren't any footprints on the porch. Not one except ours. Steve pushed the door open. The hinges gave a long, hollow groan that echoed through the halls. The air inside was colder, heavy with dust, and that sharp smell of something damp left too long in the dark. Our light swept over torn wallpaper and fallen picture frames. There was a staircase that leaned to one side, telling it was really old. Jay stepped in first, bat raised a little. "This place looks like it's been empty for 50 years. Kelly followed close behind him, clutching the radio tight. It hissed again, a burst of static. Then a voice, just for a second. It was faint, like someone speaking from another room, then gone. She froze. Then she said, "Did you hear that?" We all stopped moving. The only sound was the quiet tap of something dripping from upstairs. "When," Steve said, though his voice wasn't steady. He turned to me. "Shine your light over there." I moved the beam toward the hallway. The floor was covered in dust, except for a single clear trail, like someone had walked through recently. Jay noticed it too and said, "Those don't look old," I said quietly. We followed the trail toward the living room. A broken couch, a fireplace full of ash, and a pile of burned wood that looked fresh. "Someone's been here," I said. The radio hissed again. This time it was louder. A burst of static that almost sounded like breathing. Kelly turned the dial fast, panicking a little. "It's not stopping," she whispered. The static broke for a split second, and all four of us heard it. A soft, childlike voice between the noise, whispering just one word: "Leave." The radio went silent. No one said a word for a while. We just stood there, the cold pressing in from every direction. Even the wind outside had gone quiet, like the whole world was holding its breath. Jay finally broke the silence. "Yeah, I'm done," he said, lowering his bat. "We got our proof. Let's get out before the floor eats us." Steve didn't move. He was staring at the staircase. "Hang on," he said softly. "Someone's up there." "No, Steve, don't," Kelly whispered while shaking her head. But Steve was already stepping forward, flashlight steady, boots creaking against the old boards. A beam of light hit the top of the stairs. Nothing there, just shadows and peeling paint. "See," I said, "no one's." Then something moved, quick, a blur darting past the hallway upstairs. Just enough for us to see the shape. It was small, maybe the size of a child. Kelly gasped and stepped back. The radio radio in her hand flickering on by itself. The dial spun, and through the static, that same voice whispered again, "You shouldn't be here." Jay cursed under his breath. "Okay, that's it, we're leaving." Steve stayed frozen, his light trembling slightly. "Wait," he said in a low voice. "Look." On the top of the stairs, something rolled down slowly. A small rubber ball, scuffed and covered in dust. It stopped halfway, then tapped once more, like someone had nudged it. Jay was the first to move. He turned fast and grabbed the door handle. Twisting hard, it rattled but didn't open. He shoved his shoulder into it. Once, twice. Nothing. The wooden door didn't even budge. "It's stuck," he said. "It's goddamn stuck," he shouted. "Move," Steve said, stepping over. He tried it himself, slamming his boot near the hinge. The door didn't even creak. It felt solid, sealed, like it had grown into the frame. Ellie's light shook in her hand. No, it was open when we came in," she said. I ran to the window beside it. The glass was dark and thick with dust, but I could still see the outline of trees outside. I tried to wipe it clean with my sleeve. It didn't clear. The dust was on the other side, caked thick. That's when I realized something. The trees weren't moving anymore. No wind, no snow. Just still. Like a painting. Behind us, the radio crackled again. The sound was faint, but clear now. Not static nor voices, but music. A soft melody, old and warbling, like a toy music box buried under the floorboards. Kelly whispered, "Steve." We turned. The ball that had stopped halfway on the stairs was gone. The sound came slow at first. Small steps, soft, deliberate, from the floor above. Creak, pause, creak. Each one heavier than it should have been for something that small. Jay lifted his bat, backing away from the stairs. "Steve, we need to go, now," Jay exclaimed. Steve didn't answer. His flashlight stayed aimed at the stairwell, hand trembling slightly. The light flickered, dimmed, then went out completely. "Light's gone," he said quietly. I turned my own flashlight toward him, but it suddenly flickered. Then Kelly's beam flickered too. One by one, the lights began to fade. Not all at once, but like something was draining the batteries right out of our hands. "Keep them up," Steve said, his voice tight but steady. "Don't drop your lights, no matter what." I tried to sound calm, but my hands were shaking. On top of the stairs, in the fading glow, a small figure stood, shoulders hunched, head tilted, two hollow eyes catching the weak light like glass. Kelly screamed. Jay swung his bat toward the stairs. The hit landed on nothing but air. The light flickered back for a second, and the figure was gone. The radio hissed louder, the static cutting through the silence. Then came a sound none of us expected. Laughter, soft, broken, and childlike, echoing through the walls. "Turn it off," I said. Kelly fumbled with the dial, but the laughter didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the radio anymore. We spun toward the door as the knob began to turn on its own. Slow and deliberate, we can hear the metal scraping sound of the rusty doorknob. Click, The door creaked open halfway, and cold air poured in. But outside was not the road we came from. Everything beyond the door looked gray, washed out, like the color had been drained from the world. The trees were there, but wrong. No leaves, just black branches twisting upward like arms. Jay whispered, "What the hell?" And then, faintly from the distance, the music box started playing again. Steve didn't wait. He grabbed Kelly by the wrist and pulled her through the door. "Move," he shouted. Jay and I followed, not even thinking. The cold hit us hard, burning our faces as we stumbled down the porch steps. We ran straight toward where the car should have been parked. For a second, I thought it was gone. Then the fog thinned and the outline of it appeared. Jay yanked the door open and jumped in first. I dove into the back, Kelly right after me. Steve slammed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. No one spoke. We didn't even look back. The tires spat gravel as we tore down the road, headlights cutting through the fog like knives. Only when the town's lights came into view did anyone breathe. Kelly still clutched the radio tight against her chest. It was silent now. No static, no voices. We didn't go home that night. None of us wanted to. We ended up at Steve's place. Lights on, doors locked, the four of us sitting around his living room with blankets and half-finished mugs of coffee. Kelly called her mom, her voice shaking, telling her she was staying over. Her mom agreed without a second thought. She trusted us because we had all grown up together. No one really spoke about what happened. We just sat there, listening to the ticking of the clock and the sound of the wind outside. Finally, Jay said quietly, "Next year, no ghost hunting." No one disagreed, and that was the last time we ever went ghost hunting on Halloween. The night of Halloween. This happened to me in November 1977 in a small town near Superior, Wisconsin. I was 12 that year, the kind of age where the whole world still feels like a story you can walk into. Halloween was the biggest night of the year. The whole town glowed orange. People raked leaves into piles and burned them, so the air smelled like smoke and damp paper. The school held a small costume parade on Halloween night. People lined the fence, cameras flashing. We couldn't wait for Halloween to come. My friends Matt and Jason and I had spent the entire week making our costumes. We wanted to be different, not store-bought. Matt's mom gave us old bed sheets, some brown paint and rope. We cut out holes for eyes, tied the sheets with belts, and rubbed dirt on the fabric so we'd look like ghosts that crawled out of the train yard near town. Jason said it was perfect because the yard itself was supposed to be haunted. There'd been an accident there in the 50s, a worker caught between cars, or a boy who vanished while playing. None of us really believed it, but it made a good story to tell the younger kids. That afternoon, we met behind the school to test the look. We practiced walking with our arms stretched out and pretending to moan. People around us started laughing, and the teachers rolled their eyes. The bell rang, and we promised to meet at Matt's house the next day, right after dinner around 6. The next day, after helping with chores, It was already afternoon. I prepared my costume and couldn't wait for sundown. When the time came, I was really excited. The streets were alive. Porch lights flicked on one by one. Paper bats hung from trees. You could hear kids shouting blocks away. And every driveway had little orange pumpkins glowing like eyes. Matt and I waited on his porch with candy bags and flashlights wrapped in orange plastic. His mom took a photo of us and told us not to stay out too late. We stood there a while, stamping our feet against the cold, waiting for Jason. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Matt said maybe Jason's mom was making him eat before he came out. Then we saw someone turn the corner. Same costume, white sheet, rope belt, the brown paint mark right across the chest. He did not wave. He just walked up the steps. Finally, Jason showed up. Matt whispered under his breath. "You took forever," he said. Matt was quite upset because we agreed to start with the parade and start trick-or-treating early so that we could get to more houses than usual. I told him we'd been thinking he might not come and maybe go on without him, but we decided to wait. Jason just stood there, no answers, just quietly looking at us. Then Matt, irritated, burst out and said, "We really wanted to join the parade, you know." It was clear he was disappointed. We managed to join the parade, but we were already at the end part. Then we agreed to go and headed down the street. The night felt huge and endless. We ran from porch to porch, the bags getting heavier with each stop. We laughed so hard we could barely breathe. Jason was very quiet. Maybe he was not feeling it, as he hardly said a word. He just nodded when we talked, always walking a step behind. Sometimes he would stop and stare down a dark side street, like he saw something we didn't. I thought maybe Jason was upset because Matt got angry earlier, and that's why he was quiet the whole time. He just kept walking, slow and quiet, like his mind was somewhere else. Around 7, we reached the town square. The volunteer fire station had cider for kids, and the church gave out cookies. The 3 of us sat on the steps eating candy, while Jason just stared blankly at the street ahead, steam coming out of our mouths in the cold. Matt told a story about how his cousin, who swore he had seen a ghost walking by the train tracks at midnight. We all listened. I was scared. Jason was still silent enough that it bugged Matt, and he finished the story by jumping straight to the end because he thought Jason wasn't interested. After that, we started for the outer streets near the marsh, where there were fewer houses but bigger candy bars. The fog was rolling in from the water and curled around the street lights and made everything look like an old photograph. By the time we reached the last house, we could barely see past the gate. An old man gave us apples and told us to head home before the fog thickened. When he looked at Jason, his smile faded. He said, "You boys should stick together." I noticed Jason turned his head away, like he didn't want to be seen. We started walking back, our shoes crunching wet leaves. The fog swallowed the sounds of other kids. I remember hearing breathing behind me. It was slow and so close. I thought it was just Jason catching up. When I looked, he was only a few feet away. moving slow, dragging one foot like it was heavy. By the time we reached Matt's house, our bags were full. We ran up the steps and dumped the candy on the porch floor. Matt laughed, counting chocolate bars. I turned to call Jason over, but he was standing at the bottom of the steps, with his bag resting on Matt's stairs. The porch light flickered once. He looked up at us, and for a second I saw his sheet move, like wind was inside it. Headlights of a passing car flashed over him, and when the car passed by him, he was gone, nowhere to be seen. Matt and I started calling for Jason, but there was no answer. The yard was empty. The street was quiet. We stood there for a long time till the cold got through the costume. We went inside, told Matt's mom, and she said maybe Jason decided to go home. The next morning, we went to Jason's house with the candy he left on Matt's stairs. We knocked a few times before the door opened. His mom looked tired, like she hadn't slept. She greeted us and thanked us for visiting Jason. She said he had been sad about missing trick-or-treating. Her voice was a bit slurred, so we didn't quite understand and just nodded, telling her we brought Jason's candy back from last night. She paused, puzzled. Oh, you mean you boys brought him candy from your trick-or-treating last night? Jason would be delighted. Is really feeling down. Has been sick with a fever since yesterday afternoon. She said Jason never went out at all. When we realized what she said, Matt and I looked at each other with the same confused look, and we both said it at the same time. That couldn't be. Then we rushed into Jason's room. He was still in bed, covered in a blanket from head to toe, pale and sweating. We told his mom he was with us last night on Halloween. She just frowned and said that was impossible. We told her everything, how Head walked with us, how he barely spoke, how he seemed a bit strange all night. We decided to stay with Jason for a while, just to keep him company. After a bit, he woke up, still weak, but smiling when he saw us. We were so glad he was talking again. While we were sitting there, we told him what happened. He was in shock. He then said something that made the room feel colder. He told us that the day before Halloween, after school, he passed by the old road near the train yard, the one people said was haunted. He saw a kid standing there by the fence, watching him. Jason said he waved and said hi, and the kid raised a hand, gesturing for him to follow. He did, thinking maybe he could make a new friend. He talked as they walked, asking the kid about his name and where he lived, and if he was going trick-or-treating tomorrow. The kid just smiled at first, but when Jason mentioned he was going with his friends, the kid's face changed from smiling to blank. Then he turned and started walking ahead. Jason followed a few steps behind and bent down to pick something off the ground. When he looked up, the kid was gone. He called out a few times, but no one answered. After standing there for a while, he decided to go home. He said that when he reached his house, that's when he started feeling sick. Jason said he only remembered then what he picked up from the ground. It was a small piece of paper, soft and yellow at the edges, like it had been there for years. The ink was faded, but he could still make out a few words, and the faint face of a kid that that was hard to recognize. It looked like part of a missing person notice, the kind they used to post on poles. The picture was too smudged to see clearly, just a blur where the face should be. But the date at the bottom was still there. It said missing during the Halloween night. Second, none of us spoke. Maybe that kid never left that night at all. And maybe he was still out there, trick or treating, waiting for the night of Halloween.
Thanks for keeping me company tonight. The story sounds better, whispered by the fire, don't they? Until we meet again. This is
Whispers of the Scribe.
If you enjoyed tonight's story and would like to keep the fire burning, please support me by buying me a coffee. Every cup fuels me to keep whispering here by the fire. If you have a story of your own, something you've never told, something that still follows you at night, send it to me at whispersofthescribe@gmail.com. Maybe one day
We'll whisper it here by the fire.